All right, y'all. Welcome to our discipline paper. This is going to be our third major term paper. So that means we're getting along in the semester. Um, let's see where to begin with this one. Here's some administrative points up here. Due date, very similar to the papers we've already written in terms of expectations, formatting style, academic integrity. Not a whole lot has changed here. Same thing with the scope of your paper. Um, it- I'll just briefly state that in trying to keep it right around 5 pages, maybe perhaps a little bit more, that this is in place, this scope. Um, to just try and remind you, there's no need to go overboard in terms of, 10, 15 pages. Um, I know some of you have plenty to say, and that's good. Just know that you don't have to. Okay, this paper, this discipline paper, is meant um, to be effectively and successfully completed in 5 or 6 pages, maybe seven at the most. All right. Now, as for the topic, I want to spend a little bit of time with this. It spills over a little bit onto the next page. Yeah, maybe right there. Um, so far, we have had some freedom choosing topics, and that's a good thing. For this paper, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to read for a few minutes. Every academic discipline approaches problems in different ways. Engineers rely on technical design, sociologists analyze social problems, business majors examine markets, educators consider learning environments, and on and on. For this assignment, you will explore how your discipline approaches a real-world problem. So when I say here your discipline, what are you studying? What's your major? What career do you hope to go into? This is what I'm talking about, your discipline. AI, artificial intelligence, in higher education is an issue that touches nearly every discipline and profession. Regardless of what you are currently studying or what career field you strive to enter, all disciplines and career fields encounter and contend with different questions about how AI should be used, understood, and regulated. Or doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but just giving you an idea here. In this paper, you will explore this topic of AI in higher education from the perspective of your own academic, I should say, or career, your discipline. Each field has its own way of asking questions, gathering evidence, and proposing solutions to problems, and on, to be sure. Um, as a future or soon to be professional, you will eventually face complex problems that require you to draw on these disciplinary ways of thinking. This paper, this discipline paper, invites you to consider how your field might behold the role of AI in higher education and how professionals within your discipline, including you, might respond to the challenges it presents. Specifically for the discipline paper, then, you will explore and eventually, ultimately, argue why and how your discipline might positively contribute to solving problems posed by AI in higher education. So, this is the topic. This is the task. AI in higher education poses particular problems. Your discipline, whatever it happens to be, economics, criminal justice, history, English, whatever your major is, what does your major, what does your discipline think about AI in higher education? What problems does it see? Why and how do you in your discipline go about solving those problems? Right? I feel like I should talk about this more. We're going to be working with this for about a week. Just coming to terms with the approach to this paper, the way that the topic is laid out. Not only is it a departure from how we've um, done our previous papers, um, I don't know. I feel like this could be confusing. If you've got questions, of course, be in touch with me and we can talk about it and work it out. Um, we should ask the AI assistant, what about the problems posed by AI? And okay. Let's talk about the different elements of the problem, so or the problem solution paper. Look at this. Look what I had on my mind. Of the, if I can edit this in real time, of the discipline paper. No, I don't want that. Elements of the discipline paper. Okay, very good. One of the reasons I think I had that on my mind is because look at what I do here in a couple different areas. I'm not going to keep reminding you all of the stuff that belongs in an introduction. I think you should know that by now. And based on what I've seen of your writing, I think you do get that by now. So if you need some refresher or some review on what belongs in an introduction, just look at our past prompts, our past course materials. That'll give you a good idea. So, in addition to that stuff, or extending the previous work, the previous conceptualization of an introduction, here are some other things to consider. All right. Mostly, so, you know, grabbing your reader's attention, contextualizing the topic as you see it, those things are going to still follow through here. But what you're going to do is you want to try and find a way to bring in discussion of your discipline. Just and this is an introduction. Keep that in mind. We'll talk more about your discipline later on in the paper. You're gonna introduce your discipline, where you are in it, so that that is a perspective being introduced into this paper. Your reader ought to know that. Your reader ought to know, let's set up this topic. Let's contextualize this topic. Oh, by the way, here's me. Here's what I do. Here's how I'm involved with this. Um, and then there's also another of other things I offered you here to help color in your introduction in a way that's probably going to end up feeling quite a bit different than the introductions you've written previously for your reaction paper and for your problem solution paper. Um, I mean, we're going to be talking about problems and solutions, but we're also going to be talking about some specific or some key things, some key features of your discipline that are going to be relevant and meaningful in discussing this topic, the problems that AI poses in higher education and what to do about them. One of your main goals right here, help your reader understand how your discipline thinks and how you approach complex issues. Yes, in general, my discipline in general does this thing, and that's useful in responding to the problems posed by AI in higher education. That might be a good way of going about this. In terms of a thesis statement, well, here, I'll just read. You will probably want to set up an argument that asserts certain aspects of your discipline can and should be brought to bear on the problems posed by the topic of AI in higher education. And here I have a note. Your argument in this way should be present throughout your paper. And as we'll see in a few minutes, especially in the middle and latter parts of your paper. But you'll want to set up your thesis statement as an argument, identifying certain key aspects of your discipline and how those key aspects might be used to help solve problems that you identify as part of your thesis. Um, Posed by AI in higher education. So that's your introduction. Again, it should feel familiar, but you're gonna focus it some. You're gonna focus it and view things through the lens provided by your discipline. All right. I kept this holdover from our previous prompts, for our previous papers. If, as you are composing your introduction, once again, you find that central text or main or that key author that you really are going to carry with you or accompany you throughout your paper, you might want to introduce that at some point in your introduction. And if you do that, you'll obviously want to summarize it here at some point early on. Again, this is not meant for you to introduce all the texts that you're going to do and summarize all the texts that you're going to cite. It's just that main one. If part of your approach and strategy for writing this paper is to anchor yourself, is to um, hitch your wagon to a star, as my one of my dear professors used to say. Um, that's what this is for. Otherwise, it's just optional. Now then, for the body paragraphs that you offer in support and to expand on your thesis statement, I have the same sort of comments here. Please review our other prompts if you need to review those concepts. Here I'm thinking things like topic sentences, um, lead-ins to quotes, integrating quotes, things like that. Rhetorical analysis, just the fundamental things that could go and should go into body paragraphs. Reactions, all the things we've talked about to this point in the semester. That's all fair game here. That's all to be used and to be leveraged as you compose this paper, arguing why and how you in your discipline, could go about solving the problems posed by AI in higher education. So, what I've done here for the body paragraph section, I have it sort of organized loosely in maybe three different ways. Um, yeah, this might work here. You can think of these in sections. These aren't paragraphs. You're going to have multiple paragraphs comprising each of these sort of highlighted areas. So if you think of the body of your paper, the first section, um, whatever context, perhaps exigence you introduce in your introduction, consider expanding on that. You can help situate your reader in your introduction, but an introduction's meant for that, to merely introduce. You might spend a paragraph or two or three slowing down, saying a lot more about the topic of AI in higher education. Um, Here, let's look at some of these questions. How is it currently being used, AI that is? What challenges, concerns, or controversies? And think of this. These aren't just, phrases you're going to respond to these. These aren't not even mere sentences. You could write a paragraph for each of these bullet points, for example. And these are just that. They're examples. These are some of the things um, that I'm offering you to help get you thinking, so that you can end up here with this section demonstrating to your reader what actually is the problem. That our topic, yes, is supposed to be AI in higher education poses some problems. Okay, well, use this section, use these number of paragraphs here, perhaps with these bullet points, perhaps you'll come up with some on your own. So that at the end of this section, your reader says, okay, I fully understand the context here about this topic, what this writer, you, in other words, writing this paper, what you're doing, what you're up to. And I see here that we end this section of the paper. I get the problems. That's clear now. That's a good place for your reader to be. Fully on the same page, fully understanding what you're up to. Here are the problems. Now what? Well, now what is, again, taking from the setup that you do in the introduction above. Now let's slow down on the idea of here's my discipline. Here is what I do or I want to do in my discipline. My discipline uses these kinds of techniques and strategies and methods. My discipline is good at X, Y, and Z. If my discipline, or since my discipline deals with AI in higher education, for example, this is how we would approach it. In other words, you're really slowing down. Again, here are some ways of discussing this. What questions would members of your discipline ask about this issue? You can include yourself in here, but um, if you just had a paragraph here offering further context, but now specific to the discipline, imagining, or if knowing, and look, all these questions, by the way, these are all um, great places, great opportunities for you to gather some sources and ground whatever you claim in these moments in source material, credible sources. You don't, I, perhaps this goes without saying in my mind, but this is going to be an argument and you're going to want to have sources to support your argument. So when you go about responding to these types of prompts here that I include, do that. Use some credible sources to engage with and to help support the claims that you make. Um, what kinds of evidence or data or information would members of your discipline examine when it comes to this kind of a problem? Or if you, and then eventually you're going to get to specifically, obviously, addressing this problem, or the problems, plural, posed by AI in higher education. Um, So at the end of this section, then, not only should your reader up here understand the problems, be crystal clear on the context and the exigence, but now this is what your discipline has to do with all of that. Um, and remember, I said above that in your thesis statement, you'll want your argument to be present throughout your paper, reminding your reader of your argument regularly, frequently, signposting it. So the reader never has to wonder, what's the argument again? I forgot. No, it should be, it should almost be bugging them. Um, and especially in the middle to latter portions of it. So what I mean by that is, here you can remind your reader of it a few times, but this is really more contextualizing in things. It's when you start saying something about your discipline and what that has to do with the problems posed by AI in higher education, your claims could begin to take the shape of your argument if they haven't already. This would be a good spot to begin it if you haven't. And then definitely down here, once you start talking about problems, or the solutions to the problems, or your responses, your reactions to those problems, in so doing, offering some solutions. So if you are engaging with here in this section of your paper, some of the problems posed by AI in higher ed, one of the ways you can initially anyway engage with these problems is by having a reaction and responding to it. It's one of the reasons why we did the earlier papers like we did. Part of your response or your reaction could be, hopefully should be, some solutions. And again, you should and could ground those in source material, credible source material. Let's look at some of these suggestions I'm offering you here. What actions or strategies might professionals in your field, like you, propose in order to solve whatever problems you identified as a result of AI in higher ed? How could your discipline help? See, we can answer a question like this now, or use this question as a jumping off point because we've contextualized it substantively, significantly. We've brought in the disciplinary discussion. So now we can do things like this. We can pose solutions based on what my discipline does. This is an important point here too. Whenever you're talking, just like we did in our problem solution paper, you're going to want to talk about limitations, obstacles, challenges that might exist. This could take the shape of counter argument and rebuttal. Um, just keep this in mind. Try not to lose sight of this last point here. Here, in addition to our sort of standard ways of concluding, I gave you some other things to contemplate and consider in terms of developing your concluding remarks further or differently than you might otherwise. Let's see. I use the word reflect here. You know by now I'm big on reflection, but try not to think of this in that sort of I'm going to write in my journal or in my diary type of reflection, although some of that too, for sure. Um, what I'm asking you to do here is consider not only all the things that you just wrote up above, but having written all that now, really imagining your role, your position in your discipline. Um, go at these questions again. It's one thing to go at questions like this as you're composing, the body of your paper up here. That's going to look a certain way, it's going to read a certain way. After you do that, you come revisit similar type questions. And now what do you have to say? It's almost like you're evaluating what you just got done writing. That's one way of looking at it. I thought this was an interesting question too. I have this as the last. Look, if you respond to these, by the way, they don't have to go in order. They don't have to do any of that. You could take these how you want. Maybe this might, I don't know. I almost thought that I could see this last point here, maybe helping lead off a concluding section, but the more I think about it, it could really go anywhere. You could use this um, really to help wrap up and make that connection back up with how you began in your introduction. That'd be an interesting rhetorical move. Okay. Couple of notes here. This one should be familiar by now. Just like we've done in our previous papers, please use your own voice. Please include lots of I statements. Please try to resist that sort of distant and detached third person voice that we somehow associate with academic writing. This is your discipline paper. Let's see lots of you in that paper. I want you to use at least 7 sources. Um, and you can read about that more here. All right, I think that's all I want to say. If you've got any questions or concerns, obviously, email me, come by office hours, be in touch with me, and we'll work it out. Otherwise, we're going to take probably the first week or so and really slowly go through this so that we come up to speed and we're all on the same page. So I will see you soon.